You're listening to Feel Good Astrology with Louisa Tanner Munson. To request a personal reading with Louisa, go to www.feelgoodastrology.com.
Hi, it's Louisa Tanner Munson, and this is part 6 now of the Saturn Through the House series. So in this series, I'm looking at the effects that Saturn would have if it was in your 6th house when you were born, in your birth chart, and also looking at what might happen when Saturn transits through the 6th house and what that might mean to you. So I guess first of all we need to think about what the 6th house is about. So the 6th house is about responsibility and your day-to-day work and how you live your life, how you organise your life, how you structure your life. It's about your routines and your health, and also a little bit of your mental health, although that really does also cross over to the 12th house. But the 6th house is very much about business as usual. It's your day-to-day living. Any planets here really sort of shape and help to colour the kind of day-to-day living that you have. It gives it the theme. And Saturn, which is the planet that has a lot to do with responsibility and structure and routine and being grown up and being old beyond your years, being a good time manager, etc. It really works quite well here. So having Saturn in your 6th house really makes you want to have routines and need routines to be able to function. You're probably really good at timekeeping, unless the rest of your chart horribly disagrees with that. I would imagine that you'd put a premium on people being straight and meeting with you when they say they're going to. So you're the kind of person that is your word and expects other people to be their word as well. So it doesn't look like a very glamorous day-to-day life from some people's perspective, especially if they consider spontaneity and things like that as something that's what they might aspire to. But someone with Saturn in the 6th house would actually really aspire to have quite a calm and peaceful life that is well structured and that is fair in the results. So for instance, I would imagine executives, people that are really good people managers, sort of middle managers, I would say, I would imagine the 6th house Saturn would really fit in with that kind of profile of somebody who can handle all the details, manage a crisis, manage the people around them, and not be afraid to use their authority to manage all the different situations that come into their life. So in a home perspective, if you are the mum or the dad within your home, you're probably the one that really organises everybody and keeps the natural rhythm and possibly keeps the discipline going, because it's important to set boundaries. So it's about having quite a boundaried way of life and knowing where you are at any time. It also shows that you're very serious about your work and you're likely to go above and beyond in moving on in your work. So I would imagine someone with a 6th house Saturn would be able to move quickly into positions of authority because it's something that's understood about you. Your appearance is probably quite neat as well on a day-to-day basis. You're a great timekeeper, you never forget things, and you just have the right level of gravitas that slightly more haphazard or spontaneous people seem to lack. So there's something serious about you that people recognise and trust. So it's a sign of deep trustworthiness, really. Traditionally, the 6th house is ruled by Virgo, and I don't think Saturn and Virgo energy are really at that great at odds. Virgoans like to be of service, whereas Saturn people can be very dutiful. So there is a kind of match there, that it's quite good. I guess one of the things that might happen if you've got a 6th house Saturn is that because like Saturn shows up how we react to restrictions, but also shows our fears as well. So one thing that might show up is that you have a fear of the monotony, and a fear of being responsible, or a fear or dis-ease about having to be the responsible one all the time. So it's something that does weigh heavily on you, and something that you're happy for other people to project onto you, because of the fact that you're the one that always picks up the pieces and gets everything going, and you're the one that can be counted on. You're probably the one that does the driving on a night out, and will have flat shoes in the bag so that you can drive safely. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's admirable. It's a great skill, but one that's often ridiculed a little bit by people who are a bit more spontaneous. But I can imagine that one of the problems of having a Saturn placement here is that you fear being used, fear being taken advantage of, and don't feel that the care and time and energy that you put into arranging things in such a logical and reasonable time scale and routine, all those things that you put your care and attention to are overlooked. They're not really fully appreciated. So seeing as the 6th house also represents work, early on at school, you'll be the kind of person that works very, very hard at school and does the homework and gets everything on time and is respectful to teachers, etc. And will do well. It might be quite a lonely experience, because Saturn often shows us where we're a bit lonely and isolated. And that's probably the same with work. You'll be dutiful and get things done and do really, really well, and also probably feel a bit isolated, because you are different, in as much as, if you're the responsible one, there will be some kind of dissonance with how do you create great friendships with people when you may have to discipline them or organise them. It's a tough one. So you do keep yourself to yourself a little bit. It's the same with the family as well, because as my mum used to say, you give them an inch, they'll take a yard, or something like that. My mum was probably the Saturn 6th house person. So yeah, it's quite a useful position, but not necessarily a glamorous one. It is very useful for people that are very ambitious, and if your Saturn is well placed, and if you have very strong ambitions as to where you want to go, it's going to give you the grit and determination, the gravel to move forwards. One thing I would say with a 6th house Saturn is it's very easy for you to do everything yourself, so it is important to ensure that you delegate really well and trust the people that you're working with, because obviously you have high levels of trust in yourself and your own abilities, so trusting others is a big one. Now, the 6th house is also to do with health, and here Saturn isn't always that helpful, because it does show where you'll have boundaries, and if you think about it, your immune system is a boundary. However, if you allow the natural sort of pessimism of Saturn to get the better of you, you could actually make yourself a bit poorly. So Saturn here can represent structural problems with your bones and muscles and how you move around. So I would imagine this is a great position for a backache, upper back, you're carrying a lot on your shoulders. So the back is a real issue for this kind of thing, and sort of arthritis-y type things, where you're not being fluid enough and moving around enough, where you're too rigid on a day-to-day basis. So it's really important to look after yourself and schedule in something that's going to nourish you as well as keep you organised and regular. So plan something that's going to nourish your soul and make you feel alive and not like you're a robot. It's very easy to go into autopilot. So my challenge to you, if you've got a 6th house Saturn, is to do something regularly that you're going to enjoy, that's going to boost your health and make you feel optimistic, because Saturn can be pessimistic, and although your mental health is mainly in the 12th house, physical health, which is covered by the 6th house, is often triggered by our own mental disease and depression. So watch you don't get depressed, keep your spirits buoyed up so that you can keep yourself in good health. So that was Saturn in the 6th house in a nutshell, really, if you're born with it like in that way. Now, if you're actually going through Saturn in the 6th house, so transiting Saturn is moving over your 6th house, what you need to be aware of is just being in the 5th house immediately before that, and during that time it's got you thinking a lot more seriously about your creative pursuits and endeavours. Anything that you've enjoyed, you've been able to, okay, it hasn't been as enjoyable, but you've been able to learn more about it and stabilise and really form your interest in a more structured way. And also, it's given you a time, like if you've got a family and children and things are a bit too spontaneous, you've got a lot more organised with your children and possibly gone through some quite testing times with them. All of this really leads you up to the Saturn 6th house transit, which is about the planet of difficulties and limitations going into the place of your day-to-day running. So if you're a family, that is going to affect your day-to-day living. If you are at work Monday to Friday or whatever else you do, that is also going to affect your work, and your health obviously is going to be affected by Saturn here. So it's important, if you know that Saturn's about to go into your 6th house, that you start really looking after your health, because Saturn moving over will have a dampening effect on your health and make you feel a lot older suddenly, as things don't feel as easy. So you'll be feeling a bit creakier and a bit older and, not so enthusiastic about things, because it will probably affect your day-to-day, the day-to-day running of your life. And so there might be delays or limitations. There might be extra responsibilities at work or extra responsibilities with your family that just make everything that much tighter and meaning that you have less free time and more highly structured time. So it's a time, I think, of frustrations where pre-existing conditions can be made worse by Saturn in that house. So it's a time to, if you know it's coming, plan ahead. If you can think what the issues might be that will come up, then not just plan ahead, but actually start doing some strategies ahead of time. This could be quite an uncomfortable placement, having Saturn here. And the thing to bear in mind is once Saturn's done on the 6th house, it goes into 7th house of other people. And so if you are in a live-in relationship and you've not been able to manage your day-to-day living very effectively, and it's affected your relationship with your partner, then where Saturn's going after this, which is over the place of your partnerships, it can create so much more hassle. So I would really say that when Saturn's going through your 6th house, if you're in a relationship already and a live-in relationship, then you need to really think about all the weak points in your life and plan to make them as watertight as possible. In fact, the best thing I think with Saturn is to not only make yourself watertight and as impermeable as you can, but also plan to drain off some of that organisational energy in ways that are going to benefit you. So, for instance, if things are going to get tighter for you at home and you can see it coming ahead of time, then it might be time to think about employing somebody to help you rather than struggling through it. Or planning in that you have regular time with your partner where you can talk, or planning in regular sessions with a coach so that you guys can talk about your performance or your relationship, and really plan in those things that are going to help assist you move Saturn on into the next session and the next section of your chart, which from an astrologer's point of view is the next part of your life that's about to be affected by Saturn. Where you work with Saturn, I've said this over and over in all the different podcasts I've done on Saturn, where you work with Saturn's energy, you do get rewarded. So, always be responsible with Saturn energy, see where your weak points are, build up something to make it work, and then wait for the rewards to come in. Anyway, I hope that's been useful, and that's given you a heads up if Saturn's about to go over your 6th house. I can't really remember the last time it went over mine. and it's coming up in the next decade. So I'm not in a too much of a rush, but it is useful to sort of plan ahead and to see how your life might be coming on in those times. And also when you factor it in with Uranus and where Uranus is heading, Neptune and where Neptune is heading, Pluto and where Pluto's heading, then you really build up a picture as to what kind of trends are going on in your life and what to look out for. So heads up, if you need any help or want to talk about this personally on a one-to-one basis, then please do reach out to me. You can reach me at louisa@feelgoodastrology.com or via social media, via Patreon, via Facebook, via my web, whatever works for you best. Anyway, take care and enjoy this transit.
You've been listening to Feel Good Astrology with Louisa Tanner Munson, and this recording has been made possible by all you lovely supporters at Patreon. To request a personal reading with Louisa, go to www.feelgoodastrology.com.